Right now, somewhere in the world, a funeral is happening. Flowers, a coffin, words spoken over a body that will never move again.
It feels ancient. It feels like something humans have always done.
But for most of human history, that's not true. For millions of years, when something died, it was left where it fell. No ritual, no marker, no goodbye. This wasn't cruelty. It was just how nature worked. So, what changed? And why does the answer terrify some scientists? Let's go back, way back. For roughly 6 million years, our ancestors lived and died like every other animal on Earth. A body dropped, predators came, scavengers finished the job. Within days, there was nothing left. This wasn't cruelty. It was just how nature worked. Then, somewhere between 100,000 and 130,000 years ago, something strange started happening in a cave in Israel called Qafzeh. Archaeologists found a skeleton, a child, curled on its side, legs bent toward its chest, and next to it, deer antlers, placed deliberately in the dead child's hands. This wasn't an accident. Antlers don't fall into a grave and arrange themselves. But someone placed them there. Someone looked at a body, and instead of walking away, they did something. They prepared it. They positioned it. They gave it something to hold. For the first time in the entire history of life on Earth, a species was treating death as something more than an ending. But here's where it gets strange. Burial requires belief. Think about what it actually means to dig a hole, place a body inside, and cover it with care. You're not doing it for the dead person. They can't see it. They can't feel it. You're doing it for something else, a feeling, an idea, a belief that this body still matters, even though the person inside it is gone. Anthropologist Paul Pettit has spent decades studying this exact question. His conclusion is unsettling. He argues that deliberate burial is evidence of something even bigger than grief.
It's evidence that early humans had started to imagine.
Not just the present, not just food, danger, shelter, but things that don't exist. An afterlife, a spirit, a somewhere the dead person might be going. Once a species can imagine a somewhere else, everything changes. Religion becomes possible. Storytelling becomes possible. The idea of us versus them becomes possible because now there's an invisible world that some people believe in and others don't. But not everyone agrees this was about belief at all. Some researchers argue the earliest burials weren't spiritual. They were practical. A dead body attracts predators. It smells. It spreads disease. Burying it keeps the camp safe. Under this theory, burial didn't start as meaning. It started as hygiene. And here's the unsettling part. We can't actually tell which one came first. The same hole in the ground could be an act of love or an act of pest control. The bones don't say which. But then, around 100,000 years ago, something happens that's much harder to explain away. At a site called Skhul Cave, also in Israel, archaeologists found a different burial. An adult male. And in his hands,
A wild boar jaw.
A wild boar jaw doesn't keep a body from smelling. It doesn't make a camp safer. It does something else.
It's a gift, or a symbol, or a message to whoever or whatever this person believed was waiting on the other side. And once you find one of these, you start finding more.
At Sungir, in Russia, around 34,000 years ago, 2 children were buried head to head, covered in thousands of ivory beads, each one carved by hand.
Some of those beads would have taken 45 minutes each to make. Multiply that by thousands.
That's not hygiene. That's not pest control. That's a community spending hundreds, maybe thousands of hours preparing 2 children's bodies for something, for somewhere.
By this point, burial wasn't an exception anymore. It was becoming a pattern. And patterns are how we know something has become culture.
But here's the question nobody likes to sit with. If burial means belief, and belief means imagination, then somewhere along the way, our ancestors crossed a line. On one side of that line, a species that lives entirely in the present. Eat, sleep, survive. When something dies, it's just gone.
On the other side, a species haunted by its own death. A species that looks at a body and sees not just an ending, but a question. We crossed that line, and we never crossed back.
Every religion, every funeral, every gravestone with a name carved into it, every rest in peace,
Every candle lit for someone who's gone.
it all traces back to that moment in a cave in Israel, when someone looked at a dead child and placed antlers in their hands. They didn't know they were starting something. They were probably just grieving.
But that grief became the first thread in a pattern that never stopped.
So now think about this. Right now, in this exact moment, you're carrying around a brain shaped by 100,000 years of ancestors who refused to let death be nothing.
Every time you visit a grave, every time you keep a photo of someone who died, every time you talk to someone who's gone, even though you know they can't hear you,
You're not being irrational. You're doing exactly what that first human did.
you're saying, this still matters.
And maybe that's the real answer to why we bury our dead.
Not because we understand death, but because we refuse to treat it like nothing.